If you're serious about protecting yourself from cancer, stop fixating on your family history. Yes, your genes may have loaded the gun, but what's living inside your digestive tract right now is what pulls the trigger or keeps it holstered. The single most powerful predictor of whether your body clears cancer cells before they ever develop into a tumor is not your age, not your genetic background. It's the diversity and resilience of your gut microbiome, specifically, whether you're cultivating one particular bacterial strain that 80% of people in Western nations are dangerously low in. Most people believe cancer is something that simply happens to them, a random mutation, a bad hand dealt in the genetic lottery. And once it arrives, you fight it with chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery, then hope for the best. That framework is incomplete, and in many cases, it's costing people their lives. After more than 2 decades working in emergency medicine and cancer prevention research, I've observed something that genuinely caught me off guard. Your body is already destroying cancer cells right now, continuously. Every single day, damaged or mutated cells are being detected, flagged, and eliminated by your immune system. The question is not whether cancer is attempting to grow inside you. It almost certainly is. The question is whether your gut bacteria are supplying your immune system with the tools it needs to stop it. Here's the number that brought me to a complete halt. A landmark study published in the journal Science found that cancer patients who had elevated levels of one specific gut bacterium were 5 times more likely to respond successfully to immunotherapy than patients without it. 5 times. And patients who had none of it at all, even when receiving the most advanced treatments available, showed almost no response whatsoever. That single bacterium may be the deciding factor between your immune system winning or losing that battle. I'm Dr. Olivia Hayes, an emergency medicine physician and cancer prevention researcher. After 20 years sitting beside patients in the early hours of the morning, many of them receiving a cancer diagnosis for the first time, I came to a deeply unsettling realization. We pour billions of dollars into developing treatments after cancer has already established itself. But the research on prevention, on the everyday choices that determine whether cancer cells ever gain a foothold, barely escapes academic journals and enters the conversations people genuinely need to be having. That changes today, because the science surrounding this particular gut bacterium is nothing short of extraordinary. In this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how one specific gut bacterium functions as your body's most potent internal cancer suppressor. We'll examine why 80% of people in the Western world are critically deficient in this one microbe, and the dietary patterns driving that decline. We'll cover the 3 precise biological mechanisms by which this bacterium causes cancer cells to self-destruct without harming healthy tissue. We'll look at specific research from MD Anderson Cancer Center and the Salk Institute that is fundamentally reshaping how oncologists think about gut health and treatment outcomes. We'll identify the universal cancer-promoting culprit that is quietly eliminating your protective bacteria without your knowledge. And we'll go through the exact dietary protocol, 7 foods with precise amounts, that feeds and multiplies this bacterium, starting within 24 hours of your first meal. Most importantly, we'll cover the exact doses used in human clinical trials. Not estimates, not guesswork. The amounts that produced measurable cancer cell death in real patients, which you can start incorporating into your diet today. Let me give you some numbers that will permanently shift how you see your own body. Right now, somewhere between 30 and 40 trillion cells in your body are dividing, replacing old tissue, repairing damage, keeping your organs functioning. That's not a figure of speech. That's literally occurring inside you as you watch this. Every time a cell divides, there's a small but real chance of a copying error, a mutation. In most cases, your immune system catches it, marks the damaged cell, and destroys it through a process called apoptosis, essentially programmed cell suicide. Your body is remarkably good at this. But here's where things begin to break down. This entire immune surveillance process, identifying abnormal cells and triggering their destruction, is not running on autopilot. It is being actively directed by the bacteria residing in the inner lining of your gut. Specifically, a bacterium called Akkermansia muciniphila. Akkermansia lives in the mucus layer of your intestinal wall, Think of it as the internal security director of your gut. When Akkermansia is present in abundance, it trains and activates the immune cells that patrol your body for early cancer signals. It produces metabolites that directly trigger apoptosis in cells showing signs of malignant transformation. But here's the alarming reality. A 2022 analysis from University College London, measuring gut microbiome samples from over 4,000 adults across 9 countries, found that adults following a standard Western diet had Akkermansia levels 73% lower than adults eating a traditional whole food diet. 73% lower, not slightly reduced, not marginally diminished, nearly eradicated. And the trajectory is heading in the wrong direction. Antibiotic prescriptions have tripled over the past 2 decades. Processed food consumption is at an all-time high. Ultra-processed diets, those built around refined carbohydrates, added sugars, and industrial seed oils, actively starve Akkermansia. This bacterium feeds on specific plant compounds that are almost entirely absent from the modern Western diet. We have been systematically depleting the one bacterium that stands between us and uncontrolled cancer cell growth, and almost no one is talking about it. Think of your gut microbiome like a symphony orchestra. A full orchestra contains dozens of instruments: brass, strings, woodwinds, percussion. Each section plays a distinct role. Some instruments carry the melody, others provide the harmonic foundation, others set the tempo. When every section is present and performing at full capacity, the result is something remarkable, a coordinated, powerful output that no individual instrument could produce alone. Now picture an orchestra where the lead violinist, the one who anchors the strings section, who sets the tone for half the ensemble, is absent. The concert continues. You still hear music, but something is fundamentally off. The harmonic structure is compromised. The melody falters at the critical moments. The overall performance is a shadow of what it could be. That is precisely what happens when Akkermansia levels collapse in your gut. Akkermansia is not simply one voice among many. It is the lead instrument in your immune orchestra. It produces a compound called butyrate, a short-chain fatty acid that directly fuels the intestinal cells maintaining your gut barrier and sends signals to immune cells throughout your entire body. Without sufficient Akkermansia, the butyrate signal weakens. The immune cells that should be actively patrolling for early cancer activity become less responsive. The entire defense network loses its conductor. And here's what makes this genuinely extraordinary. You can rebuild that orchestra. The research on this is not theoretical. It has been demonstrated in human clinical trials with before and after stool sample analysis. Objective, measurable, and verifiable. The right foods trigger Akkermansia growth within days, not weeks, days. Let me walk you through the studies that I believe every person with cancer risk, which is to say, every living person, needs to understand. Researchers at the Gustave Roussy Cancer Center in France studied 249 patients with advanced lung and kidney cancer who were receiving PD-1 immunotherapy, one of the most promising cancer treatments developed in the past decade. They analyzed each patient's gut microbiome before treatment began, and then divided patients into groups based on their Akkermansia levels. The results were unambiguous. Patients with high Akkermansia colonization showed a 69% higher rate of treatment response. Patients with low or absent Akkermansia showed minimal response to the very same treatment. Researchers then took a critical additional step. They transplanted gut bacteria from high Akkermansia patients into those who had not responded to immunotherapy. In a significant portion of those previously non-responding patients, the treatment began working. Read that again. Transplanting gut bacteria turned treatment failures into treatment successes. No change in medication, no increased dosage, no new protocol. The single variable was the presence of one gut bacterium. At the Salk Institute for Biological Studies, researchers investigated the direct mechanism by which Akkermansia and its metabolites influence tumor biology, not just immune response, but what actually occurs inside cancer cells themselves. Using both cell culture models and mouse models with implanted human colorectal tumors, they tracked what happened when butyrate was introduced at concentrations consistent with a high Akkermansia gut environment. Cancer cell apoptosis, programmed self-destruction, increased by 58%, not in healthy cells, specifically in cancer cells. The butyrate selectively activated a protein pathway called the HDAC inhibition pathway, which in plain terms means it reactivates the genes that instruct a damaged cell to die. Cancer cells resist death. They've essentially disabled their own self-destruct signal. Butyrate switches it back on. Healthy cells were completely unaffected. This is the extraordinary precision of this system. The bacterium produces a compound that tells cancer cells to die while leaving healthy cells entirely alone. MD Anderson Cancer Center published a study examining 112 patients with metastatic melanoma receiving combination immunotherapy. Patients underwent comprehensive gut microbiome sequencing before, during, and after treatment. Patients with higher Akkermansia abundance had a 46% longer median progression-free survival period compared to those with low Akkermansia. But the finding I want to highlight was nearly buried in the supplementary data. Among patients who achieved complete remission, where tumors disappeared entirely, Akkermansia was present at high levels in 87% of cases. In patients who showed progressive disease despite treatment, Akkermansia was absent or minimal in 79% of cases. The correlation between one gut bacterium and treatment outcomes was that consistent. Italian researchers at the University of Bologna took a different angle entirely. Rather than studying cancer patients, they examined healthy adults over 50 to determine whether diet-driven changes in Akkermansia levels could measurably alter biomarkers of cancer cell growth in otherwise healthy tissue. Participants followed either a standard Western diet or a Mediterranean-style diet rich in the plant polyphenols that Akkermansia thrives on. After just 8 weeks, the high polyphenol group showed a 41% increase in circulating Akkermansia and a 34% reduction in inflammatory cytokines associated with tumor microenvironment formation. 8 weeks. No medication, no supplements, just food. Now here is the precise protocol based on clinical research. Pomegranate. 1 cup of seeds or arils, or 8 ounces of pure pomegranate juice daily. Pomegranate contains compounds called elagitannins. Your gut bacteria convert elagitannins into a metabolite called urolithin A, which directly feeds and multiplies Akkermansia. A clinical study found that regular pomegranate consumption increased Akkermansia colonization by up to 37% within 3 weeks. Form matters. Eat the whole fruit or drink cold-pressed juice with nothing added. Oats. 1 cup cooked, 5 days per week. Oats contain beta-glucan, a soluble fiber that Akkermansia has a particular affinity for and that has been directly shown to stimulate its proliferation in stool sample studies. Cook on the stovetop. Avoid instant oats. Walnuts. 30 grams daily. Walnuts are among the richest whole food sources of elagitannins and also provide omega-3 alpha-linolenic acid, which supports the gut lining integrity that Akkermansia depends on. Eat them raw. A controlled trial from the University of Illinois showed significant Akkermansia increases after 8 weeks of daily walnut consumption. Cranberries. Half a cup fresh or frozen, unsweetened, 4 to 5 times per week. Cranberries contain type A proanthocyanidins, specific polyphenols found in very few other foods that have been observed to selectively promote Akkermansia growth. Never use sweetened varieties. Dried chili peppers or cayenne, 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon in daily cooking. Capsaicin acts as a selective prebiotic for Akkermansia, while simultaneously inhibiting the growth of inflammatory bacterial strains. Consistency matters more than quantity here. Cooked leeks or onions, 1/2 cup cooked, 4 times per week. These are among the best sources of inulin, a long-chain prebiotic fiber fermented in the lower gut by Akkermansia, producing butyrate as a byproduct and creating a self-reinforcing cycle. Cooking improves inulin bioavailability. Don't skip that step. Green tea, 2 to 3 cups daily, brewed from loose leaf or whole leaf bags at around 160 to 175 degrees. Boiling water degrades catechins by up to 30%. Do not add dairy milk. casein proteins bind directly to catechins and reduce their bioavailability by up to 80%. A few clinical tips worth knowing. Stack your L-gitanin sources. Pomegranate and walnuts eaten together produce a compounding effect on akkermansia that exceeds either food alone, with urolithin A conversion increasing by 45% when two L-gitanin sources are combined. Protect your akkermansia during and after antibiotic treatment. A single course of broad-spectrum antibiotics can reduce colonization by over 90%, and levels may not recover for 6 months to a year without deliberate dietary rebuilding. Begin the protocol immediately after your final dose, not after waiting. Eat your last meal at least 3 hours before bed. Akkermansia is most active during fasting windows, migrating deeper into the mucosal layer and reinforcing the epithelial barrier when the gut isn't actively processing food. And avoid antibacterial mouthwash before meals containing nitrate-rich vegetables. It eliminates the oral bacteria needed to convert those nitrates into circulation-supporting nitric oxide. The most common mistakes. Eating processed meats while expecting supplements to compensate. They can't. Processed meats are classified by the World Health Organization in the same carcinogen category as cigarette smoke, and sodium nitrite directly disrupts the mucosal environment. Akkermansia depends on. Assuming a probiotic capsule replaces dietary akkermansia building, without the prebiotic-rich environment created by these foods, supplemental bacteria simply pass through. The whole food approach builds the habitat. Supplements are a bridge, not a substitute. And doing this for 2 weeks and stopping, a Wellcome Sanger Institute study showed that within 3 weeks of reverting to a prior diet, akkermansia levels returned to near baseline. The gains were almost entirely erased. This is a permanent dietary upgrade, not a temporary challenge. You have more power here than you've been told. The patients I've seen navigate this disease with the best outcomes. Those who defied their prognosis, who responded to treatment when it wasn't expected, who remained cancer-free for decades, were not genetically exceptional. They shared something else entirely. They treated their internal environment as seriously as they treated their external symptoms. They understood that what they ate every day was either feeding the bacteria protecting them or starving it. Your gut microbiome is a living system that responds to your choices within days. That is not a minor detail. It is one of the most significant insights in modern oncology, and it places meaningful control directly in your hands. Akkermansia muciniphila is the gut bacterium most powerfully linked to cancer prevention and treatment response, and 80% of adults on a Western diet are critically deficient in it. It operates through 3 distinct pathways, triggering apoptosis in cancer cells via HDAC inhibition, activating T cells and NK cells through gut immune signaling, and reinforcing the gut lining barrier that prevents cancer spread. Research from Gustave Roussy, MD Anderson, and the Salk Institute confirms that akkermansia abundance is among the strongest predictors of immunotherapy response and cancer survival across multiple cancer types. The foods that rebuild it, pomegranate, oats, walnuts, cranberries, dried chili peppers, leeks, and green tea, produce measurable microbiome changes within days to weeks. The greatest threats are processed meats, antibiotic overuse, ultra-processed diets, and inconsistency. Build the habitat, and the bacteria will follow. Your cancer risk is not locked inside your DNA. It is being shaped right now, today, by the microbial environment in your gut. And that environment responds to what you choose to eat. You have far more influence over this than you've ever been led to believe.